Test Subject A by Quinn. Chapter 1. Shopping. The words, "What does the fox say?" pulsate through my room. "Whoa!" I scream in shock. It did not take me long to realize what had happened. It was simply my alarm. Being a 16-year-old male, I obviously love that song. I continue to scoot over and stretch my arm, pressing down on the radio's off button. Though all I want to do is sleep in a little bit more, I know that's not an option. In a half-hearted effort, I brush the covers away and get out of bed. Next, I look over at Budgie Wudgie and Clip, my two pets, only to find them staring back at me. I walk over and refill Budgie Wudgie's food bowl, as I usually do in each morning. It's incredible. He somehow manages to look like Garfield on almost all Monday mornings. Continuing my usual routine, I get out of my pajamas and put on a clean shirt. Despite the small hole in the back, I keep it on anyways. I'll just go to the mall to get a new one, I think to myself. After putting on the rest of my clothes, I head out the door, making sure to lock it behind me. I'm walking down the street when the witch doctor ringtone begins to sound from the inside of my pocket. I pull it out of my pocket and answer it hesitantly. "Hello?" I ask. "Cairo Fluff," the voice on the other end of the line asks. I think to myself that it sounds like a male with a deep voice. I almost get the idea that whoever it is trying to disguise their voice. The line goes quiet for a few seconds, then the voice continues to say, "All right." He then hangs up. I put my phone back in my pocket and try not to think about what just happened. Probably just some kid trying to be cool, I think. I arrive at the mall at around 10 a.m. Some stores are just opening their gates now as the flood of waiting customers pour in like a tidal wave. I walk right past the screaming and the broken bodies of the poor shoppers who got crushed in the riot, trying to avoid a dead body that someone tied to a ceiling fan, waving around the hall like some sort of Christmas decoration. After sneaking behind the horde, I head over to the Gap to get a new shirt. As I reach the door, Witch Doctor plays once again from inside my pocket. The entire mall goes quiet enough you could hear a pin drop. All of a sudden, a pin drops, cutting into the sounds of ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah. I quickly answer my phone, not even bother to check who it is. "K-Dog!" the voice on the other end says. It's obviously my friend Trangith. Nobody else calls me that. "T-Bull," I say in reply. Everyone in the mall is staring at me now, and I can hear a few snickers from somewhere to my left. "What ya doin'?" he asks. As I'm about to reply, my cheek presses on the speakerphone button. "Speakerphone now on," my phone yells. I switch it off as quickly as I can before any of the people staring at me can hear what he's saying. "I'm at the mall," I reply. "Oh, really? That's mildly interesting." I'm confused. Since when has my friend ever spoken like that? Not knowing what else to do, I try to say, "Yep," but it comes out more like "yerp" or something. He chuckles, then asks if I can go somewhere more private. "Yes, but not at the moment. Can I call you back in half an hour?" "No," he says. "Okay, half an hour it is." He tries to say something else, but I cut him off, wanting to get these people to stop watching me as soon as possible. It works. They carry on with their normal lives as if this had never happened. Chapter 2. Phone Call. I walk out of the mall like I'm all that, and then I break out my cell phone and call Trangith. He picks up the phone instantly. "What the heck, brah?" he screams into my earlobe. "What?" I say calmly back. There's a long silence, then he says, "I forget. But anyways, that's not what's important. Are you somewhere private?" "Yep," I reply. "Okay, I need you to do something very important for me," he says. Like what?" I reply back, throat dry. "I need you to do a secret mission for me." "Say what?" I say back excitedly. "What?" Trangith replies. "Why did you say what?" I inquire. "Because you told me to, duh," he says. "Oh," I reply, feeling stupid. "Yeah. Anyways, for the mission, I need you to meet me at my place. You know where I live, right?" "Yeah, 24 Eat Street, right?" Yep, I'll see you soon. And then the phone hangs up. I'm going on an adventure, I yell out loud, and then dash out the door that someone put in the middle of the road. Literally, there's just a door in the middle of the road. Don't ask me why. It's snowing outside, and I instantly think I should have worn a jacket. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, I mumble under my breath. I get into my Fiat 500 and turn on the radio, only to find Katy Perry singing about how she likes to pretend she's a tiger and roar. I quickly switch stations to find something more suitable. After finding nothing but commercials and some cheap song about a girl who isn't a royal but she's using her imagination to pretend to be a queen bee, I switch it off and drive slowly down my street. I turn the corner and I stop the car, realizing I've already passed his house. Dang, Flabbit, I say. I start the car and go around the block once again, then stop in front of his house. I get out of my car and walk up the front steps. I knock on the door. For a few seconds, nothing happens, but then an abnormally large hand reaches out, grabs me, and pulls me in. Chapter 3. Juliet. I wake up in a room with no exit. All there is a bed, a bookshelf, and a button. Without knowing any better, I press the button. Welcome, says an intercom system. I am Juliet, and you are now my newest test subject. A door I didn't notice before suddenly opens. I wait for a few seconds, expecting something more, but nothing else comes. I walk out the door to find a hallway with metal walls and a roof. There's a staircase up ahead and nothing else. I continue my way up the staircase. 1 stair, 2 stair, 3 stair. Yay, 3 stairs, I say excitedly. I look forward to find the 3 doors. The one to the left is marked break room, locked. The one forward says exit, but there's a brick wall behind the door. The only door left is the one to the right. It's marked test. I turn the handle and it flies open. There's a crackle, and the voice on the intercom system comes on and I hear Juliet's voice. This is your first test. It's fairly simple, so I don't expect you to fail. I shiver and then walk over to a chest that has a brick in it. I scan the rest of the room. There is a door, but I don't expect it to open until I complete this test. I try it anyways, and it's locked. On the left side of the room, there is a hole in the wall that's just big enough to fit a brick through. I go back to the basket and pick up the brick, but it's not a brick at all. It's not even very heavy and it feels like some kind of sponge. I carry it over to the hole in the wall and push it through. It works! It falls through to the other side and the door opens. Good job! You completed the first test, says Juliet. You know, the last test subject took so long, I decided he wasn't worth it, so I killed him. Not that I would do that to you or anything. Certainly not. I realize I've just been standing there, so I quickly scamper through the door, but I try to keep my cool. You know, make it look like I'm not panicking or anything. In the next room, there are only parts of floor, but there's another floor underneath it. I jump to the first part, but it's slippery and I fall to the floor below. I land on my left knee and it scrapes some skin off and starts bleeding. But then, somehow, it heals itself. Pretty smart, eh? That took our best scientists to come up with a way to heal injuries in a flash, says Juliet. I get up and walk to the end of the test. There appears to be no way up, so I walk back the way I came from and find a ladder. I climb it up and find myself back at the start of the jumps. I jump to the first jump again, this time being careful not to slip off the edge. It works! I jump to the next part, again being careful not to slip off the edge. I complete the rest of the jumps and make it to the end. Nicely done, Juliet says. And you only fell once. Since you're doing so well, I think I'll give you an easy test. Suddenly, a voice that I don't recognize says, Prepare for distance travel! 3, 2, 1. Suddenly, I'm in a different room. I feel nauseated and fall to my knees. Don't worry, you'll get used to that in a while, Juliet says. I wait for a few seconds before the nausea goes away. I get up and scan the room. It's empty except for a door. Being as it's the only thing in the room, I walk over to it, expecting it to be locked, but it opens. I walk through to find myself in a maze. Have fun, Juliet says. I remember how people always say to stick to the left in a maze, so I try that. Dead end. I backtrack, and this time go forward, but I trip, still sort of dizzy from the distance travel, and I plunge into the dirt, my mouth filling with the sour taste of old boot. You should really be more careful, Juliet says. I get up, brush myself off, and spit out dirt. Don't worry, we'll have a break soon. I wouldn't want to overwork you. Disposing of dead bodies isn't easy, you know. Or legal, Juliet says. I look down at where I tripped, but there's nothing I can see that I could have tripped on. Confused, I just keep going. Dead end after dead end, turn after turn. It feels like I've been walking for hours now, and I'm sweating, even though it's probably only been 15 minutes. I'm out of shape. Finally, I find the exit. I run and leave the maze, out of breath and thirsty. Drink up, Juliet says. I notice a glass of water on the table in the middle of the room and drink it, the sweet sensation of water dripping down my throat, soothing my aching throat and stomach and removing the taste of dirt. I knew you'd like that. You can rest here for a while, and then when you're ready, you can move on to the next test. Of course, if you stay here, you won't get any food or water like you would if you keep going. I sit there for a while, thinking about my old life, as this is my life now. Thinking about Yabuki and the fancy Italian carrots I always bought her. I decide not to think of that anymore, as it will just make me sad. I walk across the room and go through the door. In the room there are 2 holes in the wall, and upon closer inspection they each have 1 button, one of which is out of reach. I look around the rest of the room, and that's when I see a box in the corner. I walk over to it, open it, and to my surprise I find a bow and arrow inside. You know what to do, Juliet says. I don't know what to do. I think for a few seconds, and then I realize what I have to do. I pick up the bow and then shoot the button that's out of reach. Then I walk over to the button that's in my reach and press it. The door opens, but only for a few seconds before closing again. I press the button again, this time dashing towards the door, and I squeeze through the door just in time before it slams shut behind me. Good thing you didn't lose a finger. It costs us money to duplicate that. Anyways, this next test is very simple. All you need to do is run in 5, 4, now! I bolt through the hallway and feel this familiar sense of cold air rushing across my face and through my hair. I hear sound behind me, but I don't risk slowing down to look back. It sounds like the room is closing off behind me. Then, a door I almost didn't see in front of me opens and I trip and fall into the next room, scraping the palms of my hands as I tried to stick them out to save myself. The injuries heal themselves, though. Juliet makes a sound of disapproval, then says, Note to self, the subject is rather clumsy. I am not, I shout back. And disagreeing, Juliet says. I sigh. Don't be sad. I'm introducing another living organism to your tests. It's a cactus. I get up off the floor and brush myself off, scanning the room for what the test may be. But a green thing in the middle of the room catches my eye. I walk over to it. It looks like someone attacked it with a bunch of needles, but then again, maybe they're naturally like that. I've never even heard of this cactus thing before. I touch it and it pricks my finger. And for the 20,000th time since I've been in this hellhole, I feel pain. Ow! I exclaim. Oh yes, I forgot to mention that you probably shouldn't touch them, Juliet says. Anyways, continue the way you were going to get to the next test. I walk down the path, only to find more and more of these cactus things. After a few more steps, it almost seems as if it has turned into a cactus maze. And then I realize, it is a cactus maze. I start turning left and right, occasionally brushing against the cactus and getting scratches on my arms. I exit the maze far faster than the last one, and I only received minor injuries that, as soon as I stepped into the next room, healed themselves instantly. I have just received intel that we have a monster infestation in one of our labs, so we'll need you to clear it out, Juliet says. Then that voice that I heard once before says, Prepare for distance travel! 3, 2, 1. And then in a flash, I'm in a different room, just like last time. And once again, I feel my knees give out and I fall over, my head banging on the cold metallic floor. Ouch! On the floor there is a shining sword that looks very heavy. I walk over to it and pick it up with all my might, but just like the brick, it weighs practically nothing and flies over my head and clangs into the wall behind me before clattering to the floor. I thought you said you weren't clumsy, Juliet says mockingly. I ignore her and walk to the other side of the room to pick up the sword again. Then I head through a door that's just opened. That's when I hear it, the groaning and the shrieking, piercing my ears. The sudden burst of light catches their eyes and they come towards me, their eyes black holes of death. The subtle scent of a 12-cow dairy farm trickles up my nasal hole, and I nearly barf at the stench of it. As the first one approaches me, I swing my sword and chop its head off. Its body and head fall into the ground, and the noise slightly dims down a bit. The next monster comes at me, blood smeared against his face, and the bottom of his mouth gone. I swing my sword again, chopping his body in half at an angle so that he just kinda stands there for a few seconds. Then, the top half of his body slides off diagonally and hits the floor. Awesome, I say. Just keep killing the monsters, Juliet says. I grunt, slicing and dicing monsters of different shapes and sizes. Some of them are small rat-like creatures. Others look more like humans, well, except for the fact that the human-looking ones all have things that look like tumors and blood. I have defeated almost all of these things now, the last few glaring at me with anger in their eyes, as if they were having a tea party and I just interrupted it and killed half the guests. The remainders run at me, their feet shuffling more than an old person playing shuffleboard. I swing my sword, eager to be away from these monsters. The sword kills them, slicing through them as their different colored blood squirts out, splattering all over the room. Good job, Juliet says. Also, we may or may not be responsible for the monsters. Prepare for distance travel! 3, 2, 1. I'm back in the test chamber, except this time I don't fall over. Juliet continues. This next test includes your best friend, the cactus. It's more of my ingenious parkour. A door on the other side of the room opens and I walk through it, only to find exactly what Juliet had said, parkour. Except this time the temperature is extreme. There's what looks like lava below. Chapter 4. Horse. I jump to the first spot, but the only place I can jump next is on top of a cactus. I think for a few seconds about what to do. I realize I should probably just jump on top of the cactus and then to the next spot. I'll have to do this quickly to minimize the pain. It's now or never, I think. Sporadically, I jump and land on the cactus, thorns stabbing into my feet. I scream. It feels like a bad doctor has just jabbed 10 of those big cartoon needles into both my feet. I see where I have to jump next, though. Luckily, it's a short distance. I pull my feet out of the field of pain and jump. I land it perfectly and I can feel the pain in my feet disappear. The hole's no longer there. There's just one more jump now and no cactus. I leap, soar through the air, and stick the landing. In front of me is a door. I try to open it, but it's locked. I scan the room looking for another way out. There doesn't seem to be another way out, but along the wall I can see a slight edge gleaming in the light, leading straight to a key. I tiptoe onto the ledge, arms out, trying to get a grip on anything I can. I scoot all the way across the wall, making it to the adjacent one. I stretch my arm as far as it can go and grab the key. Then I maneuver back to the door. Nailed it, I say. I stick the key in the lock and it opens. I throw the key in the lava because it makes me feel like I'm a rebel who can't be tamed. As I'm going through the door, I step on my shoelace and fall over, right into the grass flowers and a tree. I rub my eyes. Could I really be free? Nope, there are the same iron walls. Welcome to the break room. It's almost as if you were free to go, right? Well, you're wrong, says Juliet. Suddenly, the room transforms into a vacant space, and there's a piece of mystery meat on the floor with a glass of water next to it. You won't be free for quite some time, if ever. I'm not mean. No, screw that. I am mean. But did you know that the last person who worked here didn't even give his test subjects breaks? I'm not that mean. Eat up. I looked at the meat on the ground. It's repulsive, but I'm starving. I eat it. Ew, you're actually eating that? You could have just asked for something better. That's some of the meat of those monsters you killed for us earlier. I barf in my mouth. I can't believe she would do that. Anyway, since you're no longer hungry or thirsty, let's move on to the next test. Prepare for distance travel. 3, 2, 1. I'm in another room, just like all the others, except this one smells different. I walk forward and find an animal, a living animal. I rub my eyes to make sure it's not an illusion. Since you're doing so well, I'm adding another living organism to your tests, in addition to the cacti. It's a horse, announces Juliet. I walk over to the horse, running my hand along the length of its body. It seems to like it. I climb on top of it, swinging my leg up and over one side and onto the other. I don't know how to ride a horse, but I've seen people do it on TV. Before we start this exercise, I think you should have a quick lesson with some basics. I wouldn't want you to hurt yourself, she said. Prepare for distance travel. 3, 2, 1. I'm in another room again, but this time I'm with the horse. The horse, most likely never having experienced this before, drops to its knees before tipping over on its side. It lays there for a few seconds, startled and unknowing. Finally, it gets up. I hop on top of it like I practiced a little while ago. Here we are. I don't know much about horses myself, so I'll just let you teach yourself. When you want to get back to testing, just step into the room you're currently in and press the button. I click my heels into the horse and say, Ole! The horse walks forward slowly out of the room as I hunch over so I don't bang my head. We are now in what appears to be some kind of stable, with jumps and poles, and tracks, and even a cactus. I decide it's best to start with something simple, so I make a clicking noise with my tongue in cheek and the horse goes faster, galloping across the stable. I pull the left side of the rope to turn him to the left, just like how I saw it on TV. Success! The horse turns sharply, narrowly missing the wall. The air rushing through my hair makes me feel like I'm flying. I even start daydreaming about it, letting my mind wander. I slam into a wall, knocking my head. Everything turns black. I can hear some faint words from Juliet, but I can't quite make out what she's saying. Chapter 5. New Beginning. I wake up to white. Just white. Oh, I must be in heaven, heart, I say. Whoa, how did I just say heart out loud? You're not in heaven. You're not even dead. You're just under a blanket, a voice says. I'd recognize that voice anywhere. What are you doing here, Scooby-Doo? I say excitedly. No, I'm Juliet. Prepare for distance travel. 3, 2, 1. Barazzle dazzle! I scream. I'm in a different room now. Oh boy, more tests! Whoop-de-flip-and-do! I laugh for about 30 seconds straight before passing out. I wake up in a room with no exit. All there is a bed, a bookshelf, and a button. Without knowing any better, I press the button. Welcome, says an intercom system. My name is Juliet, and you are now my newest test subject. Ooh, that's tough, bro. How long was I reading for? 30 minutes. Whew. Oh my goodness. Now that's an audiobook. So yeah, that's the end of the book reading, the audiobook, and so I figured I would also kind of talk about like some fun behind the scenes stuff about it. So first of all, I'm pretty sure it was probably in frame for most of that, if not all of it. This is an actual real physical book. I should probably cover at least part of it because it does say my exact middle school, and also it's a class photo with like a bunch of old middle schoolers, so probably best to not show that. But yeah, it's called Anthology of Short Stories, and basically it contains a short story from every single person from my entire grade 7 English class, which is really cool, honestly. I'm very happy to have this. I don't know how many of my students from back then still have the physical book, but I'm glad I've held on to it. Genuinely a super cool project. It actually has some more information on the back alongside some more photos. I'm in the top photo in the orange on the back there, alongside a mystery adult and Ben, Keegan, and Isaiah. Keegan has of course showed up on the channel a few times. Ben and Isaiah have definitely been mentioned. There's also another photo with Patrick, who has also been mentioned on the channel, though never featured. Basically, the back of the book just says, these stories were written in one term's grade 7 English language arts classes. With funding from PAC, a project was undertaken with local author Robin Stevenson, who visited the school on a weekly basis to inspire and direct these young writers. During their English language arts classes throughout the term, with the encouragement and guidance of their English teacher, they worked on the stories that grew from this work with Robin. At the end of the project, the students had a chance to share these stories with the other local authors who graciously volunteered their time. This anthology is the result. So yeah, local author, I guess we worked together with a local author, Robin, shout out. I don't remember that being his name. I don't really even remember him being there I vaguely remember him being there weekly. I know that I had one conversation with him. I'm sure I had plenty, but the only one that I specifically remember is he asked me what my favorite book is, and I said it's Erebos. by Poznansky. Yeah, Ursula Poznansky. And, you know, back then that was my favorite book at the time. It's about this like secret exclusive video game that sort of trickles over into real life, and it starts making you do tasks in real life that get increasingly dangerous, essentially. I still have the book. I haven't read it in a very long time, but I should at some point. That's like an actual real-sized book though, so I'm not doing an audiobook of that one. Honestly, my throat's already kind of dead after doing this one. I should mention, I have actually never listened to an audiobook before. So before doing this, I very, very briefly skimmed through. I spent like a minute listening to just some random Harry Potter audiobook to kind of see how they do it. And so I just tried to copy that, but if it sounded weird or unusual from a regular audiobook, then that's why. This was written in 2013, which means I would have been 11. 2013 is likely the publishing date, so it makes sense they would do that towards the end of the year. I could have also been 12 if we did this after the summer, but I'm pretty sure we spent like the entire school year writing this on and off, essentially. It really goes to show how hard writing actually is, you know. Like, it was almost a whole school year's worth of writing for about 8 pages. Realistically, probably less than 8 pages is the length of mine. There's also stories in here from some other people who have featured on the channel. We've got Leith, shout out the Leith Blower. He's got a story in here called Shadows of the Past, Part 1, Darkness Rises. I'm very sure there was never a Part 2. And also Keegan. And then we've got some people who have been mentioned on the channel but who have never appeared. We've got Isaiah, Calvin, Patrick, and Ben. So, shout out to the squad. Now, this was my first time reading my story in years and years and years. Like, probably, I don't know, maybe I read it over COVID or something. That seems like a likely time to go back and read an anthology of short stories that your middle school made, right? But yeah, I remembered next to nothing about it. So reading through it again was very interesting. I actually just kind of skimmed through it a couple weeks ago just because I wanted to make this video, and I kind of wanted to look over it beforehand and kind of try to remember if there's anything in particular I wanted to talk about. It's very 2013. It's very middle schooler, very 11-year-old, I will say. You know, honestly, the writing's not even bad in a lot of it, but there's definitely some immaturity to it, which I'm kind of glad in a way. Like, it's really funny. It kind of brings me back. I was actually never particularly like hyper as a kid. I was always pretty calm and collected, but the opposite was always kind of true over like online communications, like writing and texting or whatever. So it's weird because even though this writing is very much not like me, it also is very much like me at the same time. Like, I remember back in the day, we had all sorts of, you know, when we first got onto email and then texting, and then we were using apps like Kik, shout out Kik. We'd have all the group chats, mostly with like a bunch of people who I knew in real life. Shout out the Merps. And yeah, I was always very, very energetic over that for whatever reason. I remember people specifically commenting on that, like, wow, you're so different in real life compared to like how you are over text. It's kind of funny. I think nowadays I'm probably more the same as I am texting compared to in person. But anyways, yeah, so super long time since I've read that properly. Definitely even longer since I've read anyone else's stories. I don't know, maybe I need to do a book reading of Leith's book next. Few things about my book. First of all, it's like very, very, very highly inspired by this random adventure map that I played on Minecraft. If you didn't already notice it, as soon as I say that, you're probably like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm doing parkour over lava, I'm killing monsters with a sword, bow and arrow. Yeah, I don't know. I mentioned there's a brick in a chest at one point, which I did notice on this read through. It does turn into a basket later. There's a few inconsistencies. There's a couple typos as well. I did catch a few. We didn't have Grammarly back then or nothing, so this was just the fruit of a few of my labors in English class. I did say that was a project we worked on throughout the year, but as far as I can remember, I don't think I ever worked on this a single time outside of class. And I want to say this is probably only something we did once a week, because we had to go specifically to the library to do this, like outside of our regular classroom. Because we didn't have a dedicated computer lab, we just had like a combined library with a bunch of computers, and that's what we were all typing on to write our books. So yeah, we couldn't just be going there every day. It was kind of like a once a week we had the time set aside for our class to go in there and work on this. So yeah, even though it was spread over a long time, it's not like it was very concentrated work, which is Probably explains why A, it took so long, and B, it's kind of a little bit scuffed, right? Speaking of, there is the one conversation I had with the author guy. I do also remember a conversation, I don't think it was him, I think it was with the English teacher, where she was very, very vehemently opposed to me putting in references to songs. I know that this has, right off the bat, I mean, some of the first words in the book are, "What does the fox say?" Which is pretty crazy. I think the intro chapter is probably the most like hectic and chaotic, or at least the first two. Once you get into the test subject part, it kind of gets a little bit more serious. But yeah, what does the fox say? I mean, I think people still know that, but she was very insistent that she's like, if people read this in the future, you know, as if this one's gonna go viral, people won't know what the songs are or what they're talking about. Which, at the time I was like, no, people definitely will. No, I agree now, 100%. I wrote this, so I know what they are, but like, there's one part where I'm talking, or I make a reference to the song Royals by Lorde, where she's like pretending to be a queen bee or whatever. Then there's also a part where I reference Roar by Katy Perry. Like, you know, what does the fox say in Roar you could probably still get, but Lorde by Royals, like, no, it's definitely dated, and I think that the average person reading this would not immediately be like, oh yeah, obviously I know what he's talking about there. My name, the main character's name, Cairo Fluff, I think it's only mentioned a couple times, like in the beginning. First of all, the first name, Cairo, was actually just something, it was a name I thought was really cool from another book that I read called Incarceron by, I wrote this down beforehand because I did not remember the author's name, by Catherine Fisher. Another book that I really, really liked back then. This one is a lot more abstract. I'm trying to think of how to even describe it. I don't know. Basically, it's about like how this main character kind of gets thrown into a ring that has a large jail-like labyrinth inside of it, and he has to escape. It's actually a trilogy, I believe. I really liked it. There's a character in it called Cairo. He has some other last name, I don't know what it is, but in this version, he's Cairo Fluff as his last name. Don't know exactly where that came from. I'm assuming I was just trying to be funny, but it became sort of like a famous name going forwards within my friend group at school. Definitely throughout the rest of middle school, even probably into like early high school, I would say. Yeah, Cairo Fluff would sometimes get mentioned, or sometimes like if I was signing up to a random account and I didn't want to put in my real name, I'd be like, oh yeah, Cairo Fluff as like my stand-in name, you know? Which is pretty funny. I hadn't thought of that name in a long time before reading this, so maybe I'll have to bring it back. There's also some other people named. I mean, I do name Garfield, shout out. I have two pets in this. They're birds. They're Budgie Wudgie and Clip. Budgie Wudgie, I'm sure, is probably just named after Budgie, the type of bird that he was, I would assume. Clip, potentially named after my pet Paperclip, who didn't really have a name. Still doesn't really have a name. I still have him to this day. Shout out my pet Paperclip, who was also had become kind of famous back in the day. Like, everyone knew I had a pet Paperclip. That's kind of a big deal, you know? Yeah, Trangith, I'm almost positive that's based off of Gareth, G-Baby, G-Man in the cut. We call each other K-Dog, and T-Bull is what I call him. Juliet, not too sure where the name came from. Could have potentially been from the Minecraft map. There's this one line, I didn't catch this when I was skimming through it the first time a few weeks ago. There's one line where I just randomly say, thinking about Yabuki and the fancy Italian carrots I always bought her. No clue, no clue. It sounds vaguely familiar. I'm sure it was just some kind of inside joke at the time, but I genuinely don't know. Closest thing I can think of is I do know that on my Me, where we made a video where we went over all my old Me's that I made when I was in elementary school, there was someone named Yabuki on that. I don't know if it's the same Yabuki or not. Could be someone completely different. I forgot to mention it earlier, but yeah, the Minecraft map that inspired a lot of this book, no idea what it was called, unfortunately. It was a long time ago now. I mean, even by the time I wrote this, presumably the map was already pretty old and I had no way of finding it, unfortunately. Because it would be cool to see it again, you know, go through it, see how much I remember. I do remember very vaguely the map. One part is that, like, I was very blown away by this. You could flush yourself down a toilet, which was just a cauldron in that map. using like a special command, and that was kind of what taught me how to use that command, which they later removed from the game. Like I mentioned earlier, I really liked doing this project. I mean, obviously I can't say for sure, but I feel like most of the people who did this enjoyed the project for the most part. But yeah, I enjoyed it so much that I was like, I'm gonna make a sequel. So I did start writing Test Subject B sometime within the next year of this book, of finishing my story for this. I can't say I got more than like maybe a page into that. I could try to look it up. It might still be on my drive. That would be crazy if so. But yeah, I will say it didn't last very long. You know, like I said, I only ever worked on this book in class. So as much as I enjoyed doing it, it was still classwork, and I pretty quickly realized that like I wasn't really motivated enough to be writing an entire sequel story outside of having to do it for class. You know, I absolutely would have done it again if we'd done another project like this, but you know, it wasn't meant to be. Yeah, okay, a lot of files are coming up here. Even some I didn't know existed. So first of all, here's the original writing of the book. It's actually got some comments from fellow classmates way after the book came out. For some reason, Isaiah came in and left a comment on this that says, I should delete all of chapter 1 and just replace it with text that says, fuck me sideways and call me Sally. That was in 2016, so like 3 years later. And then another student who I'm sure has probably not been mentioned on the channel, Julian, left a comment in 2018, December 5th, 2018, 5 years later, saying, T-Bull! Let's see if there's anything else. This is 102 pages for some reason. Oh, okay, I see why. I'm scrolling down like, how is this 102 pages? When you get to the end of the book, it does say the end, thanks for reading, that got cut. And then there's also credits. It says authors, Quinn, Mawson, editors, Quinn, Mawson. I'm also I credit Leith, Patrick, Shauna, and Ben, and the English teacher. Then Isaiah came in 2016 and commented, putting himself as credited as well there. Oh, there's even more people. I also credit Calvin, and then 2 names who I don't recognize. I imagine they must have been some adults around the time. I don't think they were students. And Keegan. Then I gave a special thanks to Dead Mouse, Fat Man Scoop, my dad, Google, Robin Stevenson, Sean Rodman, and you, the reader. I don't know who Sean Rodman is. Oh, okay, it's another author. He must have come into the class to talk to us. Then the reason it's 100 pages is because Isaiah left a comment suggesting that I add in 100 pages of a bunch of spam text and then the story copy and pasted over and over for 100 pages worth. So that's handy. Anyways, test subject B is what I came here for. Yeah, I got 1 page worth. I'll do another book reading, you know, why not? Alright, so I mentioned this a bit in the video as well, but essentially I got to about this point halfway through. I was about to start test subject B. The recording died without me realizing it, so I recorded like an extra hour almost that just got lost. And I was like, man, that sucks. I figured, I don't know, maybe it's because we were about an hour into the recording. Maybe iPhones only let you record for an hour, because there was no notification or anything. So I'm like, fine, let me set it back up and I'll redo it. So I redid it for a second time and it broke again without me realizing. I realized sooner this time, but I didn't realize at first. So I re-recorded a bunch more again, looked at it, and it had only recorded a couple seconds. I was like, oh my gosh, bruh. So I did it one final time after clearing out all my storage, because hey, it happens to the best of us. Literally the day I'm recording this part, it just happened to us on our last recording session, or the one before, I guess, when we did our last Drunk Kirby Golf. Anyways, so I did it a third time, and it worked that time, but in all of the double redoing, I actually forgot to re-record this one specific part where I read out test subject B. So we'll do that now. And fun fact, this is my second time re-recording test subject B, because I still don't have any storage. I'm just not even using the phone for this one. Everything else was recorded on the phone. This time I'm on the laptop, because I'm done with the phone. I don't have any storage on it. I don't have anywhere to make storage on it. I went and deleted a bunch of photos and videos, and that barely changed anything. So that's why we're on a different camera with a different angle and all that. Anyways, Test Subject B by Quinn Mawson. Chapter 1, A Different Start. I do the tests, blah blah blah. I'm on a horse. But this time I don't get knocked out. Instead, I fly through a secret portal that would have been impossible to see. Thank God for that portal. I would have been knocked out cold if it were a wall. Say, where am I anyways? It looks like some kind of abandoned test room.
All of a sudden, the horse falls down a trapdoor, but I spring free at the last second, scrambling onto the metal edge. I don't dare look down. I haven't heard the horse hit the ground yet, and that can't be a good thing. Using the last of my energy, I pull myself up onto solid ground. I slouch down, tired from the effort, and look back. I can see straight into the stable, and it's clear as day. I get up and... Welcome, new employee. Please don't hurt yourself on this test course. You're very valuable to us, a mysterious male voice says. Who said that? I say in reply. No answer. I continue to step forwards, right into a room with some flickering lights. It's in a cylinder shape and it's quite tall. There are cracks in the walls and some spots of the wall are sticking out. I have no idea what this is, but I'm guessing that it's an older version of the new tests Juliet put me through. Juliet might not be here. This might be my one-way ticket out of here. Yeah, ha 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 ha. Then I realize I have to get out of this room first. I quickly scan the room, searching for any clues on how to get out of here. Oh great, parkour. Fan-flippin-tastic. I'm about to go over to the start when I decide I'll take the scenic route. I think I'll take a look at the beautiful views, I say to myself. I go in a curvilinear angle, my sleeves lightly brushing against the old stone, not iron, but stone walls. All of a sudden I realize I'm lost. I look around, looking for the start, but all I can see is the start. Drats! I'm lost, I say. I decide the most logical thing to do is panic. I run all around the room. I'm running for a whopping 0.01 seconds when I trip and fall on the start. Staples, that was easy, suddenly booms from the speakers placed in the room. I ignore it, starting the first jump when all of a sudden I completely give up on the story. Goodbye. So yeah, like I might have mentioned already, this was essentially my attempt at just starting a sequel in my free time. Turns out that this wasn't really how I wanted to spend my free time, so I gave up after literally one page. Obviously, it's got pretty similar writing to the original book. It's got like a lot of these funny little one-liners and quips and stuff that, while obviously extremely stupid, are still kind of funny, at least in my opinion. I don't know, maybe I'm gassing myself up too much. Anyways, I'll throw it back to the old recording now where I find and read another file called Test Subject C, which I actually had no idea existed until I started recording this video, so that's pretty cool.
We can continue. My throat is pretty dead, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm like, I don't want to have to wait to do this later or like after I'm back from my classes, my afternoon classes. It'll be dark, I'll be wearing different things. Let me just get this done. Test Subject C by Quinn, the swaggiest guy since sliced bread. That's actually what it says. Chapter 1. The words, "What does the fox say?" pulsate through my room and make their way right into my ear sockets. I instantly sit up straight, on alert after that dream? I'm sweating. I look at the clock. 8:04 a.m. "Sweet Sally Sassafras," I yell. "I'm gonna be late for work. Oh no!" I scamper to get my favorite Teletubbies shirt on and some pants. I'm going commando today. What are you gonna do about it, punk? I put some Hawaiian colored flip-flops on and do this wicked sick dive roll, clearing the outside stairs. Sickening, I think to myself. I keep going full speed and clamber into my Fiat 500. Fiat flick, I say, and flick myself in the arm. I'm such a silly goose. I check the dashboard clock. 8:03 a.m. Wow, I got dressed so fast I reversed time. Either that or one of my clocks is wrong, but nah. I put the pedal to the metal and rush to McDonald's. To be continued. So yeah, this is about a page. Not even a page, really, this one. And I guess it's framed as like a sequel to the original. I don't remember writing this one, I'll be honest. I genuinely don't. Funnily enough, I remember a different one called Test Subject Z, or Z for Zakiki, because it was Isaiah who wrote that one. And I think it was about the same, like he maybe got 1 or 2 pages and then was like, I'm out. But yeah, he wrote like a fan story version of the original book. I don't know what to call it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find it for this video, but it is out there. And this one was actually written by me, but it was directly edited by him, not just like commented on like some of the other ones. So I guess we might have worked on this together. The culmination of 2 very brilliant minds. Not much to comment on this one. Like I said, I don't remember it. It is kind of funny. Like, I don't know. Similar to the first book, there's just some funny quips in it, you know. The Fiat flick thing is something that me and my friends did, just like punch buggy, no punchbacks, but for Fiats, obviously. Kind of ironic that I would do that when apparently I own a Fiat in this universe. that's pretty much it for the book part of things. However, the next year, so this would have been grade 7 that we did all the writing. Grade 8 in English class, we had a different project where we had to do a short film, and it was a group project, and me and my group, we ended up deciding to do test subject A, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure we were the only group to do something like that. Like, all the other groups did actual existing plots of other things, or maybe something original. They probably wrote something original. I think I was the only group to use our actual story from the previous year, which is very cool. I'm very honored that, you know, the people liked it so much to actually come on board and film it. I am now, well, I have been for a while now, but I am technically a published author, and I've had a movie made based on my work, which is pretty insane. So I have the script for it here. I haven't looked through the full script, but it is essentially the original book, but adapted into script form. It's actually, like, quite different, though. There's a lot added on. There's new characters, new things. It continues past the point where the book ends with the horse, which is kind of interesting. Speaking of test subject C, I'm going back to it. I forgot to mention something. I do specifically remember at some point in grade 7 or 8, the teacher saying, like, do not use the "it was just a dream" trope in your book. But I guess I used it in test subject C. But to be fair, I think she meant it as like an ending, because a lot of kids that age, whenever they're writing stories, for some reason they always end it with the "it was all just a dream." Nah. So I switched up the flow. I did it in the start of the sequel book instead of at the end of the first book. So I feel like I'm safe. I'm exempt from that. But it's kind of funny to remember, especially because I don't remember writing this, but I do remember her saying to not do that, and then I went and did it, I guess. Obviously nothing specifically for school. But I also I definitely believe that, like, a lot of kids that age would do that. That sounds like something that would happen. Anyways, I'm just scrolling through this script. Like I said, it sort of actually expands beyond the original test subject A. It also sort of includes test subject B in it. There's new characters as well. There's a character named Silas, which you'd think would be Leaf because that's his real name, but it's not. It's actually, if I scroll down here, it's actually Keegan. Apparently he plays Silas Error, /played Silas Error. That's the character's full name, apparently. I don't remember as much about this one, probably because I didn't write all of the script like I wrote all my original book. So yeah, Keegan is Silas Error, which is kind of funny because I actually remember Keegan's role as just being the cactus. Turns out it was Leaf who was the cactus, not Keegan, so my bad. I guess I got that mixed up. But I do remember filming it in, like, the staircase of the bottom of the staircase of our middle school. We made, like, a costume with quotation marks. It was basically just, like, green construction paper that we decorated and kind of taped onto him, and filmed myself touching him. I was the main character. I was Cairo Fluff. We had Ben as Juliet, Keegan as Silas, like I said, Leaf as the cactus, and Calvin, who we just recently mentioned on the channel, as Trangith. Then there was one more character, Mr. Isaiah. Now, to my memory, he was only actually ever the car, because I drive to Trangith's house after an initial phone call. But according to this, he was actually not only the car, but also the horse. Very similar roles, I would imagine, and the mystery man, who I am not confident on, but I think it might be the initial guy who called me on the phone, and I'm like, man, that sounds like someone who's trying to disguise their voice. I will say, I don't know if I ever had plans for any of the plot lines of that book. Test Subject A, the original, it wraps up pretty abruptly, and I think that that's more just because we ran out of time in the school year. So that's probably why it ends so abruptly. I can't really say that for sure, but yeah, I mean, a horse gets introduced and then immediately it ends by me crashing into a wall right after, and then it's just like, yep, now you're back in the beginning of the tests again. Oh, my infinite loop, bro. Nah, that's crazy. If you didn't catch that, bro, now you did. You just got new appreciation for the original. So yeah, anyways, Isaiah was the horse and the car, and he did that by just getting down on his hands and knees, or like his elbows and knees, probably hands and knees, and crawling essentially while I sat on his back, and he just carried me around. He's a big, strong boy. Very funny role to have. He was interesting to work with. He didn't really want any roles. Like, he was always kind of there when we were filming at school. but he didn't really want to be in it at the same time. I think he just kind of wanted to hang out. And so, yeah, like I said, we filmed often at school, like probably at least once a week during English class time. But there's always certain scenes where you need to be off school for. Like, for example, the very first scene in both the book and presumably the movie is me in bed waking up to "What Does the Fox Say?" going off as my alarm. And so we actually filmed that. I remember filming it at my place and me being in my own bed with all the boys over. And that's actually some of the only footage of this movie that still exists. Unfortunately, the actual finished product became lost media pretty much right after we submitted it. Feel like what happened is maybe he submitted it and then we were all like, oh yeah, let's all kind of save a copy of it. And then that just never happened, and then the thumb drive got lost. Or I think it was on the thumb drive as like the only copy, and then we handed it to the teacher to play it in front of the class and /watch for her to grade, obviously, which took her a while, and then we just never got it back. I'm pretty sure that's maybe what happened. I can't say for sure. Lost media. But we do have that one single scene of me in bed, and I didn't know that it even existed until maybe a few years ago when Leith suddenly sent it. That was pretty funny to watch back. It would have been amazing to have the full thing. Obviously, me and Salvy could have done a proper reaction. That would have been a fantastic sloppy Sunday, but alas, maybe someday it'll turn up. Probably not. I got a little off topic. We were recording at school for most of this, but sometimes we had to record at home, like the one in my bed. But also, the only time we ever needed a car or a horse was when we were off. Did I call it campus? Off campus, sure. That's crazy to call middle school that, but you know what I mean. And so, he never really came to any of those, whether it was because he was busy or just didn't want to. So the only time he ever came was also the only time we ever filmed his scene that he was in, where I was riding him as a car/horse, right? And every other time we filmed off school, he wasn't there for. Unfortunately, we lost that footage. The one time he was there, we lost it, and we couldn't refilm it with him. So instead, we refilmed it with one of my best friends at the time, Harrison. I'm sure he's been mentioned on the channel before. I haven't talked to him probably since middle school, really. It's been a very long time. Anyways, me and him were hanging out, having a play date, I guess, and that also coincided with doing the filming of this project one of the times. And so he got to feature as the car instead, which was very funny, because not only was he not part of our group, he wasn't in the class. In fact, he didn't go to our school, so nobody knew him except for me and, you know, some of my friends who had met him previously through group hanging out sessions or birthdays or whatever. But like everyone else in the class, when they saw him on screen, they were just like, who is that, bruh? It's just some random kid. So that's pretty funny. Isaiah ended up getting kind of unintentionally cut for the most part. I don't know if he stated it at all. Maybe he's mystery man, maybe not. I couldn't tell you. We ended up, like I said, watching all of the different groups' videos in class one time towards the end of the year, which was pretty fun, I guess. I mean, you know, they were middle school video projects. I remember not really loving any of them. Even our own, like, I liked it. I could follow along with it, right, as best as I could, because we wrote it, we filmed it. But I do remember, like, some of the only feedback we got from another student was this girl named, I think it was Anna. I'm pretty sure it was Anna who came over to us, or at least me, and was like, yeah, I don't know what just happened in that movie. And we were like, well, all right, I don't know. Either that's our fault or it's her fault. I'll blame her, you know. Maybe she was dense. Can't believe I'm saying that to a middle schooler 13 years later. But yeah, you know, a good movie really makes you think. Makes you want to have to read between the lines to interpret the art for yourself. So maybe, yeah, if you didn't get it, that's on you. I don't remember how we actually did on the, like, grade-wise or anything for the book or the movie, to be honest. Also, one funny thing about the movie is Leith was the director/cameraman/editor. Shout out. He's always sort of been interested in those sorts of roles, which I think is really cool. And he was, like, the only one who really properly knew how to do it. Properly, I say with... He honestly, it's a non-0% chance, now that I think about it, that he might have used the same tripod that we used for Salvy and Quinn up until recently, the super old broken one. Not impossible. To be honest, I don't really remember there being a tripod. No, I feel like he did. I feel like he was holding it though. And so at that point, when you're holding it, unless there's an auto stabilizer, which there's definitely not, there's kind of no point in having a tripod, to be honest, because it's still just going to be super shaky. That vaguely rings a bell. I can't confirm or deny. I'm just remembering that right now. I completely forgot about that little fact the first and second times I've already recorded this segment. But yeah, I think he very likely could have had that same tripod that we used for all these years and was just holding it in his hand. So it was super shaky, blurry footage. I mean, it was off one of our phones back in 2013 or 14, so obviously the video quality was pretty bad as well. As the editor, he also really hyped up some of the things that he said he was able to do. For example, in the book, there's a section where I do parkour over top of lava. That made the cut for the movie as well. We actually filmed it at a different school. We filmed it at an elementary school because it's got a bunch of rocks at the top of the field that I was jumping across. And Leith was like, yeah, this is gonna be so sick. Like, I'm in post, in the editing, I'm gonna edit in all this lava in like the background and underneath your feet around the rocks and stuff. It's gonna be so cool. He never did that, and probably had no idea how to. I don't blame him. I don't know how to do that either, even 13 years later or whatever, right? But it is kind of funny that he hyped it up with these false promises and all that. I'm just looking over to, this has taken me so long to record this stupid video because of the issues. At this point, I'm almost gonna be late for my class, so let's keep chugging along, try to wrap this up pretty quickly. We actually first mentioned the fact that this book exists back in like the early days of Salvy and Quinn, like 2019 or 2020, one of the earliest videos. We mentioned it in a video, I'm pretty sure it was just called Quinn's Book, and the thumbnail was like me with some fake glasses on or something like that. And in that video, yeah, I mentioned the fact that we did this, and we're like, oh, we should definitely do like a book reading, like an audiobook, like I just did right now. So there you go, I did it eventually. It took me like 6 years. Man, Salvy wasn't here for it, but I figure it just kind of works better as a me thing, considering it's my book. I don't know what I would have had him here to do, to be honest. He could have been some of the characters, but, well, he can barely read the texts on the screen in the video games. He's talked about it, right? I'm not leaking this. I'm pretty sure he's talked about the fact that he's also in the process of writing a book for a long time now, like several years. Not obviously super grinding it or anything, but he's been slowly sort of doing a lot of writing. And so it'd be very cool to hopefully one day be able to read, maybe listen to his book as well. I'm sure it'll be probably better and longer than this one. But no, overall, these were just really, really cool projects to do. I think I kind of already said that. I love them a lot. I love that I still have the book. Don't know how many other people still have the book. I'm actually in the process of slimming down my bookshelf because it's got just a ton of young adult novels for the most part, and then like my more recent books that I've read, like actual real adult books, there's not really space for them, so they're all just kind of piled on top of the other books. So I need to get rid of that. I've just decided kind of recently that it's finally time to let go of them. I mean, it's been time for a while. It's just not something that would ever spring to mind. I don't know. I don't wake up and be like, ooh, you know what I should do today is get rid of that bookshelf. But yeah, finally time. Need to get started with that sometime soon to make space for my actual current books. And also, like, I won't get rid of all of them, especially the ones that I've mentioned in today's video, like Erebos being my former favorite book, alongside Incarceron being the book that inspired the main character's name, Cairo Fluff. Like, I gotta keep stuff like that. Stuff that, like, I specifically remember either really loving or holds some sort of something, it means something to me. I'll have to figure that out later. I know that I had some other favorite books for a long time. Probably after Erebos, for a very long time, my favorite book became The Diabolic by someone named S.J. Kincaid. It's a trilogy, and the second and third books really suck, but the first book I loved so much. And I reread it probably a few years ago now. Still liked it, but it is very funny to read it, 13 years later when I'm not a middle schooler anymore. It really shows its cracks with the writing and stuff like that. It's pretty funny, but I still like it. I'll still keep it, of course, for that reason. And I've also been starting to log my books as well through a website called Goodreads, which basically just lets you, log the books that you've read, rate them, review them. I'm not doing any reviews, but I am rating them, which I will say is very hard to do when you haven't read them in 14 years, because first of all, I don't even remember all of them very well. And even the ones that I do remember, I'm like, oh yeah, I loved this book as a kid. Like, does that mean it's a 5 stars if I loved it as a kid? Like, if I read it now, would it still be a 5 stars? Almost definitely not. So it's been kind of tough to decide how to rate things, but I'm slowly getting through it. I've only done the bottom couple shelves of my entire bookshelf, so it's a work in progress, but we're getting there. I'll finish it up eventually, and then that way it'll be nice to have the log, the history of all the books that I've read, even if I get rid of all the books. We know if you got the Goodreads, we'll link for real. Anyways, yeah, like I said, pretty much time for me to get going to my afternoon class. So I'm glad I finally got to read this, do this video, even though it unintentionally became a massive pain to do. Let me know what you thought of the book, if any of my former classmates are watching this, any memories you have from the time, of course, of this project, or these projects, plural. Thank you for watching this and Quinn video. I'm like, hey, what's up? Goodbye.